Tell me more about the stories. So, obviously, reading what's up on the website right now, it seems like this is a lot about your perspective and your journey through it at AOC. But tell me some of the stories that kind of caught your eye the most. What were some of the most memorable?
Yeah, the guys. I changed the name of the guys where I knew I should. A couple of times I didn't. You remember the guy named Don? And now I'm going to forget his last name. Who had been in Hollywood as a TV video producer, and almost died here, and then went public. I mean, to the extent that he wrote in our newsletter, he published a book, he testified at our fundraiser barbecues. So there's no reason to change his name. In fact, I think he would approve. I think he's out of town now. If you have main characters, I don't know, there may be 6 or 8 who I dwell on. Others kind of come and go very quickly. But Don certainly was one, and I wanted to put him in because he is atypical, I think, of, the guy had problems with drugs or alcohol. To my knowledge, that was not his problem. He had what I call the magic parlay, aside from drugs and alcohol. But he had lost a job, lost a spouse, lost health. And that'll do it, whether you're drinking or using drugs or not.
Absolutely.
It's not clear to me either as we look at these men and their problems. Many have drug, alcohol problems, but and how many cases does that cause and how many cases does that affect? I think often some bad things have happened which quote unquote drive them to drink or drugs. So anyway, there was one main character. I want to put him in. Then there were the lovable, irascible people. A guy I call, and I get his real name mixed up with his book name, Luther. His book name is Curtis. And Curtis opens up the book, and it's episodic in the sense there's just a lot of anecdotes. And I knew at some time I couldn't go on with that. I'd have to do a little more in depth, and I'd have to wrap it up. I couldn't just be one thing after the other. But well, Curtis, let's talk about him. He was an interesting guy. He had oxygen with him constantly. Constantly, and even in the car. But he also liked to smoke, and I thought that was somewhat of a weird. And I say, I wonder if the oxygen tank valve gives out, or somehow malfunctions, more likely. And Curtis is smoking, and then what happens? But he was an endearing guy, and I found out, and I know the guys kind of superficially, really, many of them, until if they're around a while, then I know more. But Jessica told me that eventually he was terminal with some kind of heart problem or something like that. So he's there, and then the man I call Luther, irascible guy, you may remember him because he had a motorhome in the back lot that was totally broken down and all that. And his story was interesting. Well, he claimed to be an LA cop. And I found out later that he'd been a security guard at a box store. And some things had happened to him. Bad things. But I included him because his story was interesting, but also when I went with him to get shoes, because he's diabetic, he had to get diabetic shoes that will expand with your swelling of your feet. And I went over to it's in the Carrie Tingley building of all places, which has that children's unit, but there's another podiatry or whatever it is. So I went with him, and he was getting fitted for his shoes, and I asked the tech there, I said, how much is the shoes going to cost? $2,000. Well, to me that's an interesting fact. Now later I had another guy in a similar situation. He said he thought his were going to cost $500, but that's what I was told, and that gets to the system, that we're in. Well, then Luther goes off. David Cisneros arranges to sell Luther's motorhome, supposedly for, I believe, $2,200, which was an amazing amount for that thing. Luther goes out, meets this woman in a bar, and do I need to finish the story? The next week, Luther's back with us, and that's a separate chapter title. I say something like, Luther is back, his money is not. So then Luther and I get in this discussion about things, and he was somewhat bitter, to say the least. So I tried, I guess, to choose a range of men to show they are types in their own way, but the point is, I guess there's several types. There's not one type. of homeless person at all.
Yeah.
And sure, there are the guys with the alcohol problems, there are the guys with the drug problems,